Welcome, guys, to the episode 4 of the Invincible Journey. And today we have an industry expert right from football, and he has a lot of achievements and a lot of uh, feathers on his hat with lot of things, lot of qualifications, lot of licenses. So today we have Ryan Roy Shah, who started his playing career from Air India under 15 2009. Then he moved to Kenkre FC to under 17 at 2010, 2011 with Mumbai United, 2012 and 13 at Brookhouse College Football Academy in England. Not only this, he also has qualification, which is the FAW Wales UEFA C certificate, AIFF C certificate, SFA Scotland C license, FA International Level 2, FA Futsal Level 1, FA Goalkeeping Level 1, PFSA Scouting Level 3. Not only this, he is the director of Pune Pioneers Football Club, sports coach at Kalpavriksha Academy, director of sports at the Wonder School, core team member at the AIFC, which is the Association of Indian Football Coaches, and a highly good contributor with the Indian Football Portal. With all these achievements, with all these licenses, with all these qualifications, you would have figured out how knowledgeable and how experienced this person is. So Ryan, welcome to this show, and we are really honored to have you on the show, and you gave us your time from this busy schedule. I hope to have a great conversation with you. Thank you, Ryan, for joining us.
Thank you for the big introduction. I think you have made me nervous here with such an elaborate introduction, but absolute pleasure. Always nice to discuss football, regardless of whether it's on the field, off the field. It's something we love doing, and I'm always happy to do it.
Right. Right. Thank you so much, Ryan. So before we start into the real journey, real sports industry, I would like you to introduce to our viewers, when did you first time decided that you would be passionate about sports? Yeah, passionate about football because Indian community में या Indian we are still a sporting nation. We have not been a developed sports nation. हम लोग अभी भी develop हो रहे हैं. We're on the verge of being a sporting nation. तो इस सब में when did you decide that you will be very serious with sports?
Right. Now, usually any kid, if he or she has a bit of skill in the sport, in any sport whatsoever, then they already have this kind of mindset that I want to try and become a professional. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
It just happens that, as you mentioned, because of sociological reasons, or either because they suddenly feel that it's too tough, it's not as glorious and as fancy as it looks on the outside. People decide to then take other routes. Now with me, I started off playing football at the age of is it 9 or 10, which is actually quite late in comparison to Europe, to the time that to the age that kids started in Europe. But once I did get into the groove of it, one always wanted to, like other kids, I also wanted to become a pro footballer and, get a club, play for a club. Like every kid, I decided that, I want to play for Manchester United because obviously that's the good. And then reality hits you, doesn't it? That sabka basta baat nahi hai. Especially because one starts late and one is in a country which isn't known for football. But then once I got into my first club, I mean, before I got into my first club, the passion was always there. And now, see, using the word passion is actually quite dangerous because most of us don't really know, are not too sure about what level our passion is, what degree it is up to. Is it just a, so it's like, is it love or is it just a fling, basically? And then once I got into that, I just found my calling. I found my calling, and I've been very fortunate that despite being in an Indian environment, I've got parents who are really, really supportive. So I mean, probably the reasons why I decided to get in, continue, and do it till, because that constant push was there. That go get your qualifications done, do what you have to, perform, do well, and all that stuff. So that's where my passion has. That's where I probably first identified it, and now I guess what is it? More than a decade into it, and the passion hasn't gone down at all. The fire still burns.
That's really amazing. actually, because now the football in India is going to the next level. Because nowadays, when we look at the Indian Super League games, ISL games also, yeah, or I League games also, Gokulam Kerala FC, the way they play, or Mohan Bagan or various other clubs which we support, Mumbai City FC, the way they play is really taking the standards very high. So Indian football is improvising and improving day by day. But back there's been a strong history of football in Pune, because when I was 14, like back there in 2014, there was Pune FC, wherein I represented Mumbai when I went to Pune, Balewadi, and Pune FC was there, Arata Izumi, and other players of Pune FC were there. So we have seen an establishment of Pune FC to DSK Sivajians to Pune City FC now. And Pune has a strong history connected to football. So, what according to you has changed in Pune in terms of football and in terms of the game in general?
In my view, it is really sad that all the clubs you mentioned, they don't exist anymore. Then
Yeah,
the three of them plus Bharat FC, they
right,
were another team that had come up.
right. Yeah.
Now, yes, when I had just got into club level football, there was no ISL. So I am a
Right,
disciple of the I League,
right,
where our excitement was when East Bengal and Mohan Bagan were playing the derby in the I League. They weren't an
right,
ISL club at that time. And then in Goa, you had fantastic clubs like Churchill,
right,
Salgaonkar,
right,
Tempo. You
right,
had JCT and Mahindra, and these were great
right.
teams once upon a time, which
As
went.
Well FC was a.
So Aizawl FC wasn't there at that time. At that
Oh,
time, from
when
the
you said,
northeast,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, at that time there was Shillong Lajong.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and they were the new I League, the new Northeastern I League team, and
Yeah.
then after them came Aizawl and I think Neroka and Trau, and in between there was for the second division I League you keep getting Rinty and
Right,
Langsning and Chingaveng and Chanmari FC and all these guys.
right.
But now with coming to Pune,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I really liked the squad Pune FC made at that time. As you mentioned, they had Arata, they had Paresh Shivalkar,
Yeah.
they had Shubroto Paul as a goalkeeper, they had
Yeah.
Edmar, the Brazilian, Duhu in midfield. That was a great squad. And they ran their club professionally. I remember because I'm not originally from Pune. I lived most of my life in Bombay.
Oh,
Now, when they used to come to Cooperage, I remember they used to take these new initiatives with fan engagement where they used to give you a bottle of water and a snack, that thanks for
yeah,
coming. And that's what
yeah.
they did things differently. And the other clubs also tried the same. Like if you look at DSK, the facilities that they had built
Yeah.
were second to none. I mean, they had an 11-a-side AstroTurf pitch, 11-a-side grass
Mhm.
pitch. They had
Yeah.
top class boarding and lodging. They had gym facilities,
Mhm.
education, um, qualified and experienced foreign and Indian personnel.
Mhm.
Bharat FC, unfortunately, I mean, they also went with the right approach, but it's just that their player recruitment had gone a bit haywire because they
Mhm.
ended up signing big names, but big names where their expiry date was,
Yeah.
they were reaching retirement, and then that's why I
Right.
think they finished badly, and then
Mhm.
Mr. Kalyani decided not to run that team anymore. FC Pune City, another great club. They did things very differently. In fact, they did whatever these other clubs have done and more. But
Right.
now, why the culture has become why in fact why they don't sustain is that you have to look at it from a very microscopic level. Now,
Mm.
Balewadi, the stadium is located kind of on the outskirts.
Outskirts. Yeah.
It's not like Bombay where let's say Cooperage is in Churchgate,
Mhm. Mhm.
or you have got the it's the Mumbai Football
Mumbai
Arena
Football Arena. Yeah.
in Andheri. Yeah,
Yeah.
so these are very commutable regions.
Yeah.
Now in Calcutta, even if you I mean no, actually in Calcutta they have the Salt Lake Stadium, which is also on the outskirts, but actually
Mhm.
no comparison because their football is number one, isn't it? But
Right.
in metropolitan cities like this, if you're not going to have a stadium where people can commute easily, then
Mhm.
people locally would wonder that should we travel an hour or 2 hours to
Mhm.
go and watch a match? And then
Right.
they're like, instead we have work tomorrow, we have school tomorrow, we have college tomorrow. Why don't we just sit at
Right.
home and
Right.
that's one. Number two, we are in a state which is Maharashtra, which is quite better developed than many other states
Mhm.
in the country.
Mhm.
So any kind of distraction or external influence becomes, I mean, people from Maharashtra would become much more, would fall prey to it. That, okay, there's football, but then there's also Bollywood, there's also cricket, there's also
Right.
music, there's also
Right.
there's everything.
Right. Right.
So that's where it becomes a very, very tough job for India, for Pune clubs to create a culture. Now,
Right.
obviously, you've got the Pune League and running, and I mean, our club is also in the Pune League. But then the thing is that we play 6 matches and 7 matches, and then after that we wait for a while before we go on to the next one. So
Right.
then a lot of players, their calendar for the year is just those 2 months, 1.5 months,
Yeah.
sometimes 3 months.
Yeah.
So then what happens in the next 9 months? It's just you're playing private 5-a-side, 6-a-side,
Right.
7-a-side.
Right. Right.
And you're not doing anything that's very, very notable. So now
Mhm.
so that's why we do not have, if you notice, too many players who have come out from Pune to play at the highest level. So the
Right.
closest has been Paresh Shivalkar. Then
Yeah.
you have had a few people like Laukik Jadhav, Shrikant Molangiri, Prakash Thorat, and a few others who have gone on to represent the I League, but nothing close to, let's say, a senior national team call up or something
Right.
like that.
Right.
So I
Right.
think once you start off with engagement and grassroots development, as well as a proper footballing calendar and structure, once in place, then Pune can become a powerhouse in football. And also, my last point, I'm of the belief that see, I'm not a Maharashtrian myself, but I've
Right.
lived most of my life in Maharashtra, and I believe that why is it that when we have to look for players, we have to go to Goa, Kerala,
Yeah.
Calcutta, Mizoram, Manipur, Punjab, and all these places?
Right.
It's not that there's that you find the best talent over there. That the best you'll find the best football culture over there, and because there's a culture, people are dedicated enough.
Right. Right.
Now, Maharashtra is known for the Maratha clan,
Right. Right.
the
Right.
warriors.
Right.
The It's the land of Chhatrapati Shivaji.
Right.
So I it just doesn't add up to me that a warrior clan cannot play football.
Exactly.
I just don't find the logic over there. So the
Yeah.
moment we get a culture of all these states into Maharashtra, you will see so many people from Pune, from Maharashtra getting into top level football. And in Bombay, there is a culture, and that is why you have got, for example, in Mumbai city, you have got Rania Fernandez. You
Right.
have got players from Bombay who are playing in the I League, in the ISL,
Right.
and they're doing.
Right.
So it's all a cultural thing.
Right. So it was really helpful the way you put it across. You mentioned that you were a very good disciple of I League and not Indian Super League. So nowadays we have reports coming up wherein the AIFF and there is various clashes between keeping Indian Super League as the main league in India and not I League. So what is your take on this? Because I have been watching I League. I've been to Kuprij watching games of Mumbai FC and Aswal FC. Jayesh Rane, one of the local lad, also is playing in a bigger stage now. Also has a Indian call up as well for the senior team. So all this while, I League is for grassroots development. If we can say, I League really, players connect to I League more. I feel, according to my point of view. So, what is your take on this about Indian Super League and I League?
So the Indian Super League was started with the right intention, which was that you create a buzz,
Right.
which the I League didn't
Did
have.
yeah,
So
exactly.
from a marketability perspective, I think it's been a blessing that the ISL
Right.
has come in. And it's been
Exactly.
a blessing to everyone, because suddenly during when when it was just the I League, every fan said, okay, United, Chelsea, Real Madrid, Liverpool,
Right.
Barca,
Right.
Milan.
Right.
Now, because of the marketing that they have done, you have got the, for example, the fan base of Kerala Blasters,
Like
fan base
Manjipada
of
fans.
Mumbai City,
Yeah.
Manjapara fans, and all these guys.
Yeah.
You see, so there's finally the ISL has given a platform for recognition
Right.
by the public towards Indian football. So that's
Right.
been brilliant. And it's been because they have, if you notice the broadcasting, that's the first thing that's superb. So I would disagree that the ISL has a better standard than the I League, because you
Right.
look at Super Cup results. You
Right.
will find I-League clubs beating ISL clubs. But
Right.
from an armchair point of view, the ISL looks better because you've got clear high definition games. Now
Right.
for the I-League, you have to unfortunately get onto that one sports where where it's all blurred, and suddenly just before someone's going to score a goal, they switch to golf,
Right.
and
Right.
then from golf they again turn to, and you have an I-League match happening.
Right.
You have got like a good match between Srinidhi and Gokulam, for example.
Right.
This actually happened, so that's why I'm taking their names.
Right.
But then why would anyone in their right mind decide to
Mhm.
watch a league where they suddenly play golf in between, or
Right.
where it's not in high definition?
Right.
Having said that, I think as a country, as a
Mhm.
federation, we are responsible for for our number one aim in whatever we do. We can do it
Mhm.
big level, small level. Whatever we do in football should contribute towards the betterment of the men's and women's national team.
Right.
That's my belief.
Right.
Now, in the ISL, there is so much of a frenzy, like a fanboy kind of culture with foreigners,
Mhm.
that we'll bring look at the number of foreign coaches in
Mhm.
the ISL. In fact, I
Right.
think right now I think all of them have foreign coaches. Earlier
Yeah.
Khalid Jamil was there for a while, but now he's gone to Bengaluru United.
Yeah.
uh,
Bangalore
and
United.
then
Yeah.
yeah, and then this thing of foreign players, but now I think it's good that they have now reduced the cap. But now
Mhm.
when it comes to foreign coaches,
Yeah.
yes, I agree that they are tactically, they might have a better idea. They
Mhm.
come with that poshness, where you can
Right.
probably market all that stuff. But I would refuse to believe that when it's an Indian culture where you have got
Mhm.
Indian players to manage,
Right.
and don't mind me saying, majority of Indian players are uneducated.
Right.
Now there you suddenly get a foreign coach who's going to say, now we're going to do this, we're going to do that. On the tactics board, he's going to show you
Right.
100 different patterns.
Right.
I don't think that's better than, let's say, a Khalid Jamil or a Derek Pereira or
Exactly.
a Chen, or
Right.
the likes of, let's say, Naushad Musa. Steven Dias
Mhm.
is now
Mhm.
doing good things with his team in Bombay.
Yeah.
Maybe,
Ambernath
maybe,
United. He was the coach
yeah,
of
with
Ambernath United.
yes, with
17
Ambernath
games,
United.
17 wins. Like.
Yeah, so now I think these are the coaches who should be put in that put
Mhm.
in that position. And
Right.
let's try and go towards let's try and trust our own people right now, because
Mhm.
we have a coach education system where we are, rightly so, we are told that upgrade your certifications, your licenses, and
Right.
all that. But then once the coach gets a pro license,
Mhm.
where does he go? He'll become an assistant coach at an ISL club.
Right.
So what's the motivation for them to spend that 4.5 lakhs to get their pro license, or whatever it costs? So let's start
Right.
trusting Indian coaches more. Let's
Mhm.
start try and play as many Indian players as possible.
Right.
Because when it comes to the national team, at
Mhm.
that time you won't have a Fijian like Roy Krishna saving you. At that time
Right.
you have to depend on Chetri,
Right.
right?
Right.
So maybe try and get more. I would call it more Indians involved in Indian football.
Right.
Let's not be
Right.
racist towards Indians in Indian football. Let's
Right.
get away from this mentality, because it was great initially to
Mhm.
get that thing going, get the hype going. But now,
Right.
even with these guys, the
Mhm.
ISL will still maintain that brand. And also another thing, I really hope that very soon it becomes one league.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where have we heard in world football where you have got, let's say, the English Premier League and then you have got another English Premier League?
Right.
Never happens, right?
Right.
And another thing, I think the current coach Igor Stimac clearly
Mhm.
said that he won't. He said it a few months ago or a year ago
Mhm.
that he won't consider I League players for the national team selection.
Yeah. 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 I read
So
that
does
report.
that,
Yeah.
yeah? So does that mean that the I League players are wasting their time?
Exactly.
Does he mean that he only wants to look at players who are all they are doing is supplementing the foreigners? So look at the spine
Right.
of the ISL teams.
Right.
You'll have a foreign centre back, you'll have a foreign centre mid, you'll have a foreign striker, you might have a winger, one out of two wingers
Right.
who's a foreigner, and the Indians are just supplying to them. So
Right.
is this what he wants? He just wants a bunch of people who are going to supply the ball to Sunil Chhetri.
Right.
That we can't depend on that because he's 37. He's going to
Yeah.
finish off. It's nice that the likes of Ashik and Sahal and Brandon, they
Manveer,
are creating.
Manveer Singh. Yeah.
Manveer Singh, even this the Goan boy, Liston. These
Yeah.
guys are doing.
Listen.
Yeah, they are also showing their spark. So why not give them the main role?
Right.
And that is when their standard will increase, and that's how our ranking will increase. That's what I feel.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So, uh, so ISL clubs and I League, this debate would, I guess, keep on going on for a few years as of now. But I am just happy, or we are just happy in the football industry that players are just coming out, and there are leagues wherein, and there are clubs who are investing in them and creating them as well. So, moving on,
But
in the
sorry
introduction,
to interrupt. So
yeah,
sorry
yeah,
to interrupt. There are two things that I really like now over here. The
yeah,
first
yeah,
one is that finally the ISL is going to have relegation. So now
yeah,
here
yeah,
there's
yeah,
there's hope for I League clubs that now
to
we are
get
not going
promoted.
to be, yeah, now we
Yeah,
won't be the abandoned baby. Now we have
right,
a chance of the favorite child. And number
right.
two, I really liked how they had a proper calendar revealed. I think it was it a 6 month or a nine? I think a 9 month calendar
Nine
where
month
they,
calendar.
yeah, they said it's the Durand Cup from this date to
Yeah,
this date, then the ISL this date to this date, then
right,
the Super Cup, and we are also going to wait for the I League and the I League second division. So I think
right,
this is sorted for a lot of fans. I mean, we'll be stuck to
right.
the television hopefully now for the next
Exactly.
9 months.
I
So
guess
that's beautiful.
Indian football just needed time. They just needed a
Yes,
long season. Like they didn't want to finish in 2 3 months, as you said before,
right.
because after that off season becomes a really long period and players lose motivation at that point. But if Indian football has a really long season, it would really be helpful for us.
Yeah, more
But that's
games, more
more
games
games,
for the
right?
players. Yeah.
Exactly. So moving on, as we mentioned in the achievements also, you started from Air India under 15, then Kenkre under 17, and also Mumbai United, Brookhouse College Football Academy in London. So if you look at these clubs, if you look at the level, it always keep on, becoming a new challenge, and you be upgrading yourself, you becoming more professional. Tactics would have changed, coaches would have changed, teammates would have changed. So how did it affect you as a player? How did you adapt well as a player? And was it really a challenge for you to fit in all these clubs? Because I know Air India plays a different style of football, Kenkre plays a different style of football. So going and jumping to different clubs as well. That is how we
Right.
grow as a player. So how did you adapt
Absolutely.
it well?
So now, the Air India story is the most beautiful, I'd say, because
Yeah.
I had become a fan of Indian football
Right.
before I actually went and gave trials.
Right.
So for me, it was like, okay, this team Air India, they play on television, and at
Right.
that time they had when I had become a fan at that time,
Hmm.
I think they had Stephen Dias and Paresh Shivalkar were playing for the club.
Right. Right.
They had some top guys, I mean, it was known as a factory for producing players. People
Right.
would just, like, every year they would lose half their squad to bigger and better teams.
Right.
Now, I would watch these guys on television. I used to go to Cooperage and watch them
Right.
play. That time it wasn't a turf; it was a grass ground,
Grass
and I
ground.
used to
Yeah.
take autographs. I used to take
Right.
autographs of all these players, and then I went for the trials, and then
Hmm.
I got selected. Uh, it was more of I mean, less of what I'm doing. Great, I got shortlisted.
Hmm.
It was a 1 month trial and all that for the under 15 team and all that,
Yeah.
but it was lesser of that and more of, okay, the people who I take autographs
Yes,
of,
sir.
these
Yeah.
guys are running laps around the pitch while I'm playing. So it was
Right.
like, okay, is this real? So it became a proper fanboy moment. And
Right.
then we had a fantastic coach
Hmm.
called Mr. Bimal Ghosh,
Hmm.
and he is, I don't think there are too many people better than him when it comes to developing players. He's been
Right.
very he was a he, his till today, he sticks to his beliefs. He is
Hmm.
old school in many ways, but then that
Yeah.
works magic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, under him, he was very clear. He was very demanding, very strict, very deadly.
Hmm.
Um, Always ensured that, come what may, every player needs to improve. And he was actually the I League coach, but
Hmm.
it wasn't like, many coaches think they are too big, so they'll only stick
Right.
with they won't care about what's happening in the
Uh,
lower
uh,
league. This
Right.
man was there in nearly every training session. See,
Mm-hmm.
so that's where I learned about professionalism. I
Mm-hmm.
learned about how a footballer should live.
Right.
Because before that I used to play for my school team, and then suddenly over there, oh, best. I used to play as a goalkeeper, so best
Right.
goalkeeper, this and that, and then I used to think, I'm the Van der Sar, and then I went to Air
Right.
India and I said, shit, this is something completely different. And so that's where I learned my work ethic, discipline, punctuality. There were life skills that were taught over there, which remain with me till today.
Right.
Stuff like being on time is actually being late.
Right.
Be before time, stuff like that. The You have to be in the correct attire, you have to behave in a certain way when you're on the field. Nothing else should matter. Hard work is priority. Give your 100%, and then everything else will fall in place.
Fall in place.
Then we
Yeah.
went to yeah then I went to and yes, and the whole experience of playing with players who were the senior team or an I-League team. And then in the goalkeeping training, I was mentored by a goalkeeper called Arnab Das Sharma. He
Mm-hmm.
taught me a lot about goalkeeping. I think he played for Mumbai City and Delhi Dynamos, Mohan Bagan. He's had a
Right.
top career. He taught me. In fact, I stayed with him for 6 days at the Air India colony, and he taught me everything about goalkeeping, a lot, in fact. And then facing shots from a few of the players, there were some good Nigerians and all that.
Right.
Then at Kinkre, it was more of so there we had a coach called Mr. Floyd Pinto.
Mm-hmm.
He was with the youth Indian youth national team, and
Mm-hmm.
he's right now Round Glass Punjab.
Okay.
He was 24 when he was our coach, and he was quite modern, ahead of his time. Suddenly we went from the traditional training to suddenly like looking forward to stuff like, okay, today what is he gonna train us
Right.
on.
Right. Right.
Then I went to Mumbai United, where
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, sorry, and at Kinkre we had some good times, like beating at our age group, beating the Maharashtra team 3-0.
Right. Right.
And it was a very positive club. It
Mm-hmm.
was very the energy was always bubbly. You looked forward to going there. And I learned
Right.
from an early age, I always had an interest in what happens off the field. So
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Floyd Pinto was definitely a top coach, top
Mm-hmm.
trainer. There was also Mr. Joshua Lewis, who's the CEO of the club right now, and
Mm-hmm.
he's been the CEO ever since. I think he must be completing at least 2 decades since the club existed. And there was so much in conversation with him, how the finances should work, how the
Right.
budget should be, how you should not blast your entire sponsorship money, because otherwise the next year you have nothing and you shut down.
Right.
So
Right.
I learned a lot over there also, education wise, football education wise. Then went into Mumbai United, where it was more of on a match to match basis.
Mm-hmm.
From there, I went to Mumbai Tigers.
Oh.
So this was a club that had come up in the second division I League, again coached by Mr. Vimal Ghosh. There again, top players, top facilities,
Mm-hmm.
great training. The training used to be 4 hours a day, Monday
Oh.
to Saturday.
Right.
So we were always completely at our fittest best,
Right.
and that was a continuation of the learning. And there were some good players from our batch who then went on to become highly reputed
Mm-hmm.
players, like Nikhil Pujari went to play for
Right.
the Indian national team.
Right.
Kirit Khos in the I League, and some of them have had good careers in the second division I League as well as top
Right.
state leagues. And from there I went to Brookhouse College Football Academy. It's not in London. It's in a town called Market Harbour next to
Mm-hmm.
Leicester.
Okay.
Half an hour drive from Leicester.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I learned completely. Like, I looked at how things happen in Europe, and
Mm-hmm.
by then I already had this inclination towards coaching,
Yeah.
and that was class because the coaches over there, the way they used to take their sessions was completely different. I mean, there was hardly a thing of, you enter the ground and then
Mm-hmm.
the first thing you do is the coach calls you and then makes you, like, gives his or her dialogue for 15
Right.
minutes and
Right.
20 minutes,
Right.
and you're in the sun thinking, when the hell is this going to end? And look at your, scratch your hair and look at your studs and look at your teammate, pinch someone, give a smirk. None of that. None of these get in and then run rounds like horses,
Right.
5 rounds.
Right.
None of it. It was completely the moment. So there was a reporting time that, okay, we start at, I think it was 9 a.m. or 9:15 a.m. is when training used to start, 2.5 hours. From the word go, there was like a collection of equipment completely set by coaches, and there used to be stations. Okay, you're going to train here 15 minutes, quickly take a 1 minute break, and then you're on
Right.
to the next station, next station. And so you're constantly awake at that time. There's no
Right.
switching
Right.
off,
Right.
and everyone is involved. Like, if it's a, let's say, so we had a squad of 40. Now,
Mhm.
even when they would us, let's say, play an 11v11 game, so 22 players gone, then if
Right.
the other 18 players would not sit there and watch you play. They were with
Mhm.
another coach doing a technical session
Right.
or a fitness session, you see.
Right.
So it was about how to keep them engaged at all times.
Exactly.
Dress code, like, they gave us tracksuit and polo, but they had a different attire for traveling, different attire
Mhm.
for training. So there
Right.
was a fine system. If you're
Right.
late, 2 pounds for this, 2 pounds for that, 2 pounds for that.
Right.
So that's what kept us under control.
Right.
Whole experience, I've been fortunate to have played against the academy of Bournemouth, AFC Bournemouth.
Mhm. Mhm.
I get a clean sheet actually in that match, so that was nice. We played against Loughborough University, which had a few, I think, one or two Tottenham Hotspur
Mhm.
academy players, or something along those lines. Then I watched our academy play against the likes of Nottingham Forest and Scunthorpe United,
Mhm.
and in fact, the younger ones went to play against Man City as well in a friendly
Mhm.
match. Their academy. So the entire professionalism of how football is run and the culture, that's the place where football is respected.
Right.
You
Right.
go anywhere,
Right.
you go to the pub with to where you have 10 drunkards, they'll still be
Mhm.
talking about football.
Football. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So that is what I really love about the country. And
Yeah.
I hope that one day, that's the culture that I would like to see in India
India.
as well, not
Yeah.
just restricted to a few parts like Calcutta and the Northeast. It should, I
Right.
hope one day it happens everywhere. But that professionalism is what I'm trying to bring in through my coaching wherever. So I'm trying to influence in whatever little way I can.
Right. Right. So you have come with a lot of experiences and with playing under a lot of coaches and their perspective in looking to football and in looking how to scout players and stuff has really added value to your life. And also, you have also been playing with all these clubs, which are really established clubs. The academies are really established, and they have a technically sound game. Like in UK, they have a very technical and tactical game. They know when to do what. They have plan A, plan B, plan C ready. So that is how we influence football in a country in India. So it has really added value in your life, and that is what you're doing your best. You added value with playing to different clubs and playing and training under different training facilities and with different coaches. So all this really added value to your life, and then you came on the other side of the game, like being a player. Your perspective and your point of view to football is very different and when you become a coach, it really changes like a sky and the ground, zameen asman ka farak ho jata hai dono mein, because as a
Right.
player you crib about some things, but as coaches you understand that these things are just not relevant. So you turned your other side of the game into coaching and then training and building players for the future, creating players, and really building grassroots football. So, was there a specific reason why you took up this role?
Right. So the first one is that look at the responsibilities. Okay.
Uh,
So as a player, you're only looking at. Can you hear me clearly?
yeah, yeah, I can.
Yeah. So as a player, you're concerned about yourself,
Hmm.
and as a coach, you're concerned about not just the players but the staff, if it's a youth team, then the parents, if it's a
Right.
senior team, then the supporters, the fans, and basically it's the actions of someone else
Hmm.
that's going to determine how good or bad you are at your own craft.
Right.
So
Right.
the job description, or rather the roles and responsibilities, are completely different, and
Hmm.
which is why you see most coaches start looking old very quickly.
Right.
they
Right.
they
Right.
all they all at the age of 40 they look 60, at the age of 50 they look 70. That
Hmm.
because it is a very demanding job, but I still think that it's beautiful, because if you look at it from the positive side of things, how many how many jobs in this world would allow you to influence the lives and the futures of so many young people.
Right.
So you're in a very powerful position where you can greatly influence what the future of your firstly your own club, and then your
Right.
area,
Mm-hmm.
your city, your state, and the country will
Right.
look like, and the world will look
Right.
like eventually.
Right.
So it's just about how we carry ourselves out
Mm-hmm.
and how true we are towards our role. Whether I've got this belief that a lot of coaches, they have a problem. They have an identity crisis where
Mm-hmm.
they have quit. They have got into coaching because they couldn't make it as a player. They have not
Right.
got into coaching because they love coaching.
Right. Right. Right.
Now, if you're going to think as a player, which is the job of looking after yourself, how are
Right.
you going to be influencing an entire group? And
Right.
as I'll repeat again, not just the players, but an entire community, because it's the players, their parents, it's the staff who are working with you,
Right.
it's the
Right.
volunteers, it's every
Mm-hmm.
human being, it's your B2B partners, it's everybody.
Right.
So there needs to be like once, I honestly, I'm not a big fan of the system where you play and coach. So during the season, you're playing for a club, off season, you're coaching somewhere.
Right.
It's not the best thing to do. Unfortunately, people have to do it for the money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
because the I League and the ISL and the state leagues, I mean, a year's contract is a luxury
Right.
in
Right.
the,
Right.
so they have to do all that. But in an ideal situation, they shouldn't. I think if we have decided that coaching is what we want to do, that's all we should do. Because
Mm-hmm.
the amount of, it's not just about what you deliver in those 60 or 90 minutes of your training session. It's the 90 hours of behind the scene research, you can say observations, your constant, constantly upgrading yourself, because it's so important to know the latest trends in coaching. And this can only happen through a lot of YouTube, lot of
Mm-hmm.
reading, lot of subscriptions,
Right.
lot of going and watching other coaches
Mm-hmm.
sessions and all that. It is a 24/7, 24/7 job where you need complete dedication. You can't think as a player. You have to get into the role of that. Now I'm not playing. Now I'm teaching how to play.
Right. Right.
Of a teacher than a performer. So that's where the entire, once that is sorted, then we'll definitely have a better culture. That's
Right, right. So you spoke about coaching and like you can't play and coach at the same time is what you mentioned. And also we do it for money and players in India do it for money because we don't have that financial, we are not financially sound, I feel, if we are a
it.
coach or a player in Indian football. But in a coaching perspective, in terms of just coaching, what has changed or what is the difference between coaching in India and the coaches in Europe? Because I am very sure there are viewers who are watching us, and people have also watched Pep Guardiola speaking in the Man City dressing room with all that passion, and Zidane speaking in the UEFA Champions League final. All these things are out in public, and people watch them, and then we kind of relate it to our coaches in Indian. That is a human tendency. So, what is the difference according to you in Indian coaches' perspective and the coaches in Europe or in foreign countries?
Yeah. So a copy paste method would not work, because we
Exactly.
are dealing with, not just different players, but a different culture altogether. So
Mhm.
what I can at least do is stereotype Europe in the sense that they are crazy for football.
Right.
That's what I would
Right.
stereotype
Right.
them as. That's not the case in India. In Europe, you've got everybody who's like, I mean, you don't need to really, if you're a youth team coach, you don't need to motivate your players. The players are already so motivated that they want to get their first pro contract, that they'll do whatever it takes.
Right.
In India, it's like, नहीं अभी मेरे को अभी 10th का एग्जाम देना है, या मुझे अभी मूवी पे जाना है, मुझे दोस्त लोग ने घर पे बुलाया है,
Right.
मुझे ये करना
Right.
है, वो करना है, XYZ. मुझे many youth players, मुझे हुक्का पीने जाना है, मुझे,
Right.
everyone has their
Right.
own, again it's because it's not a prime sport in the country, the distractions are very easy to
Right.
fall.
Right. Right. Mhm.
So we have to understand that we are working with a different, just think of it as you're working with different instruments. You're in
Mhm.
a music studio, but one is a piano and one is a drum. One isn't
Mhm.
it's not a drum and a percussion, it's a drum and a something completely different. So piano.
Right.
with we like to watch Pep. We like to watch Pep's systems of play. That this is
Mhm.
what he does. This is
Right.
he tell De Bruyne when to deliver the ball, and then
Right. Right.
uh, Bernardo Silva when to move off the ball.
Right.
Now imagine you tell a player who has never been through this training that you're going to
Right.
he's going to look at your face and he'll say yes sir, just to be like, okay, this is a bouncer over my head,
Yeah.
but to stay in the team I want to show that I understand, and then
Mhm.
let's see how the game goes. The If you look at this one, you've mentioned Guardiola, but if you watch Neil Warnock,
Mhm.
you know Neil Warnock in the changing room, now that is probably something that Indians can relate to a bit more.
Okay.
Of course, minus the aggression and the down to motivate the players, because that can go wrong in modern day football.
Right.
But
Right.
I think that this is what you have to do.
Mhm.
Now you may counter that Guardiola has won so much, Warnock hasn't won anything. But then at the end of the day, Warnock has hardly had a budget that Guardiola
Right.
has ever had, and Warnock I think has got a record of having the most promotions won to the Premier League with
Mhm.
clubs. And
Mhm.
it's not just so you can always relate to, let's say, Eddie Howe to an extent, because his is a lot about the entire culture of the work
Mhm.
ethic of the club, that we need to do this and this is how we are going to do this.
Right.
So in a
Right.
very easy, non-complicated way, if you
Mhm.
look at, let's say, Sir Alex Ferguson,
Yeah.
completely there's you'd never find Sir Alex Ferguson ever going to a sitting in a conference room and
Right.
saying this is the system of play, this is the phase of play. None of that. We all knew that he was the master at counter-attacking football.
Exactly.
Despite having
Exactly.
Ronaldo and Rooney in front, he would still depend on counter-attacking football, and I think he's won the most number of trophies as a elite manager till date, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
Yeah.
So I think simplifying things is most important, because we are not in a corporate where players are master's degree holders,
Exactly. Yeah.
and at the end of the day it's a game.
Mhm.
The game can happen without us. We as
Mhm.
coaches, we always overestimate ourselves, that we have come in and we have made the difference. And as I've heard so many coaches say that मेरे अंडर ट्रेनिंग करके
Huh.
ये ऐसा बन गया, वैसा ये improve हुआ, सब मेरे अंडर. The thing is, isn't that the prerequisite? If you are not developing players, then something is wrong. You don't need
Right.
credit for that. Oh, I have developed the player. That is your job,
Exactly.
right? And it
Exactly.
needs to be done. It needs to be done in a very simplified way, where as Indians we can understand, and as well as not take out the joy of the game from the players.
Right.
Let's not,
Right.
be too tactical that you did not enter the final third at this stage.
Right.
You did not use the half spaces for a player. It's like, okay, final third matlab, acha, half space मालूम है, half space क्या होता है? You see, so as long as that is done, I think the Indian system can work very well. Having said that, we should still try and adapt from the European culture, because
Right.
that is
Right.
now
Right.
we should not force it upon the
Exactly. Yeah.
upon the squad. It should
Mhm.
be more of that. Okay, from an administrative level at first, not at
Mhm.
the coaching. At the coaching level, we'll look at the Pep Guardiola session, implement it in India, and then the players will just be lost.
Right.
Instead, from a let's say the AIFF, the state associations, the district
Mhm.
associations,
Mhm.
they need to get inspired by how grassroots programs are run in. I'm talking about the UK because I've witnessed it live, but I'm sure it
Yeah.
happens
Yeah.
all around, as well as the US and Canada. We need to look at how every little town has got like 5 leagues, and every
Right.
club has got 2 or 3 age groups. So some of
Right.
them have got 5 age groups, and there it's not under 13, under 15, under 18 youth league. There you have got an under 13, under 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, so that's how specific they are. Maybe get
21,
inspired.
23,
Yeah, it goes up till under
everything.
23
Yeah.
for veterans league.
Yeah. Yeah.
Grassroots, many people are mistaken that grassroots means kids. Anything that's not professional is grassroots. So,
Exactly.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, so what are we doing for veterans football? Nothing.
Mhm.
You'll only find a tournament here or there. How are we keeping the elder people involved? What are we
Right.
doing for differently abled football?
Mhm.
Hardly anything.
Mhm. Right.
So why not try and take inspiration from that, where participation is going to get enhanced? How about have as many matches in grassroots as possible?
Right.
Like maybe it's great that there are private tournaments. I like in Bombay, the culture I like is that there are so many now. After Aditya Thackeray has come in, there's been so many new grounds and new
Right.
people are setting up turfs. So every weekend you will find a tournament here or there.
Right. Right.
Such things are being done by individuals, so by a club, by a coach, by a turf owner or whatever.
Right.
Maybe collaborate with the district body, state body, national body
Mhm.
to run such things.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, as I said, the idea is to give the best to the senior national team, men's and women's. So
Right.
this is how you have to build a pool of players.
Exactly.
Have parent initiatives where you're having parents involved playing, you're getting involved with the academy. Get volunteer systems. Have these you can say constant camps. Like talent ID camps and all. There's so much one
Right.
can do so one can copy paste what is done in Europe at a strategic and administrative level. Once that is out of the picture, once that is implemented, that's when we can go into whether we can implement a Pep Guardiola or a Klopp session in the
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So
and
basically,
we as coaches,
yeah.
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 No,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
as
I'm sorry
coaches
to cut
can't really, we as coaches can't really influence that. That's out of
you.
our hands. That's what the top people can do.
Right, right, exactly. So basically, the baseline of these conversations lie up to that we need to be inspired from them rather than copying their style. We need to
Yes.
inspire on the ways of their cultures and how passionate they are for football. Because in the UK, if we talk about English Premier League, because nowadays players are very connected to EPL, so the elderly people or the senior citizens, they also talk about football. They're also so connected with the young people or the players or the teenagers watching the game and stuff. So that is where we lack as in Indian football, I feel. So if we create
Absolutely.
that engagement, that would really help. So you also mentioned about modern football, like it doesn't work here if you get more aggressive with players nowadays because they need professionalism in them. They watch all these matches like professional football. They need professional because when we were playing or when we used to play, our coaches used to draw lines on the ground and used to explain us where you need to stand and what positions you need to stand. So it has really changed, and Indian football is really growing. So a new association came up again, which was the Association of Indian Football Coaches. What was your perspective behind this? Because I haven't seen a much of association of the Indian football coaches in general. And when I visited this website and when I scrolled through it, it creates a webinar. It creates
Right.
conferences between coaches, and coaches come down. They discuss their perspectives about football. So it's a really good initiative which you haven't seen in the past. So what has changed with the adaptation of the Association of the Indian Football Coaches?
So the Association of Indian Football Coaches, I say it is a blessing, and I don't say
Mhm.
it because I'm a part of it, but I would
Right,
consider myself fortunate for the AIFC to consider me to add value to them. It
right,
was definitely the need of the hour. So if you in the UK, you have got the LMA, the League Managers
right,
Association.
right, right,
Yeah?
right.
This is something that was long pending because usually what used to the culture before
Mhm.
earlier was that you're going to go finish your C license, finish
Mhm.
your B, finish your A, maybe finish your pro and chill.
Chill.
Now, ever
Yeah.
since Mr. Sadio Medera has come in,
Mhm.
he's the head of coach education, and he's also I think he's the acting technical director, if I'm not
Mhm.
mistaken. And he's been a great player. He's been a captain for India.
Mhm.
He's done whatever you would want to achieve in football. He's coached the Indian national team also to an AIM
Right,
Cup win.
right.
Now, that man is very, very demanding.
Mhm.
I mean, with him, there is no bullshit. That okay,
Right.
I'm gonna do my license and then I'm gonna chill for the next 10 years. If you have done your license, great, congratulations. But now you have to revalidate it.
Right,
You have to be up to date with the latest things.
right.
uh, you have to attend online or refresher courses. You have after he has come in, I think there are so many more courses that are happening. More coaches are getting educated. You have got more. Um, uh, so you have got many more D license, and so now it's not license anymore. More D certificate and certificate courses. Good coach educators coming in now. So that's why now coaches can no longer chill on their posterior when it comes to education, and it is a never ending learning process. The AIFC have come in to supplement such a powerful movement. So obviously the association could do with some help. I am for a while they were not. The AIFC wasn't really working together with the AIFF because the technical director at that time was not very keen on an independent association. But now I think they are joining hands. And what makes AIFC special is that they are constantly working on building resources for coaches. So, for example, they have these fantastic webinars where they have had a session with Raymond. I think it's Raymond Dominic, the France when Zidane headbutted Materazzi, the coach of the French national team. So then we have had a session with him. Some interesting sports science sessions with coaches in the MLS, fitness coaches and SMC professionals, the MLS. Great talk shows with the legends of the yesteryear coaches as well as current ones. Constant workshops. They have a conference, an annual conference. They have done it a couple years ago, which was probably as class as the Filmfare Awards. It was really, like managed in it was in Bombay at DY Patil. A great, proper stage with leading people from the world being flown over to address Indian coaches. So I think these activities that are being taken by the AIFC, these are going to be very, very helpful for the development of Indian coaches, and it's the brainchild of Mr. Dinesh Nair, who has been, I think, India's goalkeeper once upon a time. He's played an A license coach himself and editor. So I think this combination of Mr. Savio Medera and Mr. Dinesh Nair trying to push or rather elevate the standards and the demands of quality coach education, because in courses they keep telling us better coaches means better players. So them both combined to really get us off our posterior is what's going to ensure that the standards of coaching will go from here to here.
Right, exactly. So this would create a revolution in Indian football, I feel, because coaches are the job of a coach, the role of a coach is not really appreciated up to the mark, I feel, because they create players and stuff, and then the players go on winning trophies and all, but the coaches, they don't know who the coaches were. So I guess due to these associations and initiatives, there would be more people who would come into coaching, and more coaches creates more players, and eventually makes that path of Indian football very high. So you have been, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go on.
I was saying that if you notice, like when you played,
yeah,
could notice what the coaches were like. Many of them were the ones who could not maybe speak the English language fluently,
right.
Or they didn't have that that elegance, you could say. But right now, if you see, there are more and more dynamic people. In fact, many youngsters who are earlier you never heard of a 20-year-old coach or an 18-year-old coach. Today you will find 18-year-old coaches galore. You'll find people who have got that swagger in them. They are modern. They are approachable. So I think that revolution has already begun.
Yeah.
And in Europe, you have got coaches who are qualified at 15. I really hope that very soon that our federation also runs a program where even 14 and 15-year-olds are allowed to apply for coaching badges. I think with the child labor policy or some regulation they don't, but I hope in the future.
Yeah, it would really be helpful then, because players would also have a different kind of a perspective, being a coach, being a player. So it would really help, and let's hope for the best for Indian football. And you have been working in the sports industry in general for a really long time, specifically in football for a really long time. So you must have witnessed the downfall of the industry and also how the industry rose up again. So how was your experience when you were stuck between this? Like suddenly something is going down and suddenly something is coming up. Like we talk about I League, ISL, or players who, like Pune football, basically. It started, then it suddenly got shut down. Then there are different clubs coming up again. So how did you adapt to this, and what do you think has changed in sports in general in India?
Good question. In terms of adaptation now, the you could say the segment of football that I am involved with directly, I don't think it has a direct relation with the ISL or the I League.
Right.
It would have helped if we had an ISL or an I League club in Pune, because that would mean that the buzz would increase and more
Right.
kids from Pune would want to
Mhm.
play football, and that would
Mhm.
mean more young players joining our academy.
Right.
But I have never really, got into it
Mhm.
because that's something that's not in my control.
Mhm.
I
Right. Right.
can't
Right.
stop Mr. DS Kulkarni of DSK getting bankrupt. I
Right.
can't stop Mr. Piramal of Pune FC losing interest in the sport
Mhm.
overnight.
Mhm.
That's something I can't really say much on. But all I can say is that with whatever the condition is right now, it's more. I will look at what am I doing in order
Mhm.
to help the players, if not in Pune, develop
Mhm.
them in such when they go and give a trial outside Pune, they should still get
Mhm.
selected and hopefully, make a
Right.
career for
Right.
themselves.
Right.
And
Right.
that is through a lot of I try and combine my what I've learned in the UEFA qualifications
Mhm.
with what I've learned in the AIFF qualifications, my experiences with English football as well as with Indian clubs, and then I
Right.
try and come to a ground, try and get the best of both worlds, and
Mhm.
then program to the kids and give them the reality. So I'm very
Exactly.
uh, yeah, I don't tell the players that okay, you have a chance of becoming pro,
Mhm.
because even like we might be mistaken. There are so many dynamics involved over here. We either a player who's probably the best at our club is still probably not at pro standard,
Right.
because we'll
Right.
always have a bias because they are from our club.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
oh this guy can, like I may think that my winger
Mhm.
can is better than Ashik or
Mhm.
Jackie Chan or Vikas Jaidoo or
Right.
something, but
Right.
it may not always be the case.
Mhm.
So it's very real that basically that in England I give the statistic to them that 0.012% may get a pro contract from
Right.
youth level from level in England. In India, the number of players playing football is less. I agree, but then the number of clubs is even lesser.
Right.
So the
Right.
competition remains around the same. So it is that the days you're coming, or rather the days and the time that you're with us at the club, you are going to think as if in your mind as if you are Ronaldo or Messi, have their work
Mhm.
ethic.
Right. Right.
Try and absorb whatever you can in those couple of hours of training. The
Right.
moment training is done,
Mhm.
I now this I've not been very successful so far, but I'm trying to get to tell them the importance of sports science,
Right.
of proper training, proper nutrition, and proper
Mhm.
rest and proper
Right.
stretching technique and stuff.
Right.
But will take that. That won't be an overnight success.
Mhm.
But it is that you live your life professionally before training, during training, and after
And
training.
after that, yeah.
You're not a footballer only for 2 hours a day.
Right. Right.
But the quality of your body, performance of your body is
Mhm.
it directly determines your success on the field. But in
Mhm.
addition to that, it is that because so many, it's your chances, however good you are, your chances
Mhm.
of getting an ISL or an I League contract are quite minimal.
Mhm.
Don't let the sport affect your education,
Right.
because the however good you are, let's say you are as good as Bhaichung.
Mhm.
After retiring, what do you
Mhm.
do? Sunil
Right.
Chhetri, I think, he's doing a degree now. He's doing a master's degree or something, despite being captain of India. I think
Right.
he's taken admission somewhere in last month or something like that. So
Mhm.
it is that you have a good foundation academically, wherein if you don't make it as a player, you've still got something to look forward to in life.
Right. Right.
If you do make it as a player,
Mhm.
you will retire at 30, 32, 35, 38.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Mhm.
You won't have a chance of playing at 41, 42. Highly
Yeah.
unlikely. What do you do then? You will probably want to become a coach. You may want to
Yeah.
become a manager. You may want to get into the boardroom side of
Right.
things, backroom side of things. You may want to not do anything in the sport.
Mhm.
a good a strong foundation of education. Where and education is not just the marks you score in history, geography, science, and maths. It is the entire development as a person.
Right.
Your behavior, your speaking skills. Now there are some things that only school can teach.
Right.
There are a lot of football can teach, but only some things only school can teach.
Right.
After retirement, you still have something to look forward to. All the guys who have this, who took the approach, like once they got their contract, padhai kuch kaam ka nahi hai, jaane do. You will see many of them. Just all they are looking at is that एक संतोष ट्रॉफी खेलने मिले, उसमें सरकारी नौकरी मिल जाए और फिर हम चिल करें. And उसमें फुटबॉल का भी वाट लग जाता है. Look at customs in Bombay. Suddenly, customs will sign an amazing player who's in top shape, and suddenly he's got a big punch. Within a year or two. Because then you have nothing to look forward to, and then you just hit the bottle, or you get into, you make bad financial decisions and all that stuff. So education is always, it's not going to be priority, but it's going to be as important as football.
Right. Exactly.
So these are the things we are trying to imbibe when you talk about what we are trying to do in, basically whether DHK and all these guys have affected us. We can't do anything about that, but we can do something about this.
Right. Exactly. I guess it was a really valuable and informative podcast for those who are listening to us up till now. And finally, there would be a lot of young players, a lot of sports enthusiasts, a lot of sports lovers, not only football lovers, but various other sports lovers who would be watching us. So what message do you wish to give them finally? And do you think sports can be a big opportunity and a bigger platform in the future?
So to answer question number one, there are no shortcuts in football. Football is a jungle.
Right.
It is not, however much we want to say that, let's just go, it's just a kick around and all that stuff. Even if you're talking about under 8, I'm not saying that we need to make it a jungle saying you have to win, you need to do this and that. No. But that kid, when he goes 1-on-1 against another 8-year-old in that under 8 match, he needs to go for that ball as if his life depends on it.
Right.
Whether he wins, whether he gets that ball, whether he makes it as a pro 10 years later, that is immaterial. But commitment, dedication, hard work, tenacity, these things need to be there in the players' mental makeup before they even step onto the pitch.
Right.
That's one. Number two, every second you spend on the football field, make it, I would say, that slogan, make it large. Because 40 years later, when you're a 60-year-old, you will still be talking about, I once played that under 12 match and this is what happened.
Right.
So in every second you spend within football, make sure that you're really living it. Number 3, please, and this is for players as well as coaches. I mean, you ask advice for players, but also coaches. Please never stop educating yourself.
Right.
As a player, and education doesn't just mean the academics. I already spoke about the importance of academics, but also on Instagram, while you want to check out how the latest babe looks like, you may also want to go on to become elite and look at the big individual, like the individual drills, J&M football. There are so many great resources. Try and use as much. We are in an age where you get everything at the click of a button, and if you search well, then you don't even have to pay for anything. You do your research properly, go on to page 20 of Google, and you'll find great stuff. And number 4, please make your journey so enjoyable that when you have kids, you will want your kids to also play football.
Right. Exactly. I guess this message was very clear and very precise.
And number 2, I forgot your other question. That is there a future? Is there a future in sports? Now, if one takes the answer to question 1, then it becomes irrelevant whether there's a future in sports or not.
Exactly.
If there is a future, you have the ammunition through your technical ability, through your training, that you have the ammunition to perform there. If there is no future, you still have a future in the world.
Exactly. So I guess through this podcast, the only baseline we want to give is to keep that consistency, is to keep that passion alive, is to keep that fire burning inside you, and just keep on putting in efforts. Somewhere or the other, you can make a career for yourself in sports. And with this, I guess we need to end this podcast now. And thank you, Ryan, for joining us and giving us your valuable tips and knowledge in the sports industry, because it would really, really help people. It has helped me through the podcast, and I'm very sure it will help a lot of people who would be watching this podcast. So thank you, Ryan, to be on the Invincible Journey.
Thank you so much. I would say it's not really tips, but more of experiences.
Right.
Because after all, the day one thinks one knows it all, or one thinks one is the sun shines out of
Right.
one's backside. That's when one is done. So I think it's 80 minutes. I would say nearly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Since it's football, I could have made the 80 minutes 80 hours at a stretch. Always happy
Exactly.
to do this. I really like the initiatives you're taking with similar to, as you mentioned, the AIFC. They do
Right.
something similar. Here, you're also trying to get the buzz. You're trying to promote
Right.
football through
Right.
online platforms. It's very, very powerful. So I hope that you keep doing all this, and I hope
Right.
that you have many more shows with professionals in India and
Right.
abroad. And I hope Invincible United becomes a major stakeholder and influencer in football, but on a virtual platform.
Yeah. Thank you so
So
much. That's really
all the
kind.
best,
Appreciate it.
all the best, and I really, really hope that Invincible becomes really, really big in the future.
Thank you so much for it. We appreciate it. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll meet you in another episode of the Invincible Journey. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.